What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Drive for Show DFS for Dough here on Rotogrinders. We've got another week of daily fantasy golf here for you. A little bit of a unique, event this week with a team-based kind of partner event at the Zurich Classic. So it's a little bit different from a DFS perspective. So we'll get you all set for that here over the next, 40 minutes or so. I am Justin Van Zuiden, aka STL Cardinals 84. I will be hosting the show as usual alongside my partner Notorious, Derek Farnsworth. Noto, what's going on tonight?
Not much. Didn't have pretty much anything in terms of a sweat last week. Shout out to Russell Henley and Chris Kirk for missing some 5-footers on Friday to miss the cut. Other than that, pretty fun tournament. It was kind of interesting that nobody wanted to win it there on Sunday. You know, Spieth got in at 13 under par, and he kind of felt like he was one or even two shots, too low in order to win. You know, Shane Lowry was at 14 at the time. He had Patrick Cantlay, a lot of easy holes coming up, the par 5, which nobody could birdie there at the end. It was kind of crazy. So, and then all of a sudden it looked like Spieth was the only one that was going to finish at 13 under par. Cantlay hit that, dart on 17. And then I still can't believe in the playoff, Spieth was in the bunker. All he had to do, get on the green, put some pressure on him, and he hits it short. So interesting tournament. I think it's good for the tour when Spieth wins. He is certainly a character out there, and kind of got a bad break on number 9. So I'm happy he won, but obviously had zero exposure to him in betting and DFS.
As did I after playing him the week before at the Masters. So Spieth continues to be a frustrating golfer from my perspective. And, I don't know. I don't have much words for it at this point, but the tee to green game, was actually not really the short game that got him through last week. The tee to green game was pretty solid. So more so than we can say for some of his other wins. I think it was certainly deserved. It was very weird to see basically nobody making any birdies down the stretch there to, tie or push in, additional guys into the playoff or even top that 13 under number. I think probably when Spieth finished, he probably figured like he was a little short, but ended up getting the job done there in the playoff. And Patrick Cantlay continues to be in the mix and come up just short this year, but he's continually giving himself chances. So we'll see how things go going forward. Outside of that, last week it was a little bit wonky. Obviously, Spieth and Cantlay at the top, but the rest of the leaderboard was the top 10-ish was, littered with a lot of guys who didn't carry a ton of ownership. Lowry got up there on Sunday with a chance, so he would have been another name that was pretty highly owned. But you had guys like EVR and some lower owned names in the mix too. So lots of golfers that like you kind of touched on there. Lots of fairly chalky golfers that had 5-6 foot putts to make the cut. That really swayed a lot of lineups last week. So other takeaways for you from the RBC Heritage?
Only other takeaway, it's only a matter of time before Lowry gets it done. Kind of thought that he was going to run away with it there and ended up behind the tree on that par 3, chipped it in the water, and then all of a sudden he was out of it. So I think he topped the ball too on Sunday, which is kind of crazy for the PGA Tour. I haven't seen that since Harold Varner at the Genesis a few years back. But it's a fun tournament. I think it's one of my favorites because the course allows for a lot of birdies, but it could be tough at times too, and pretty much anybody can win. You don't have to have a specific skill set. And I always kind of like those weeks where we get that mid-teens type of winner. So I like the tournament. yeah, at least I like it more than this week's event.
And Noto doesn't like the pro-ams, and I'm not sure where the team event compares to that, whether it's above or below, or maybe we'll see how this week goes. But this is a tournament that once it switched to a team format, maybe 5 years ago, didn't have DFS for those years. And so, last year we were kind of surprised when both DraftKings and FanDuel started offering contests for the Zurich Classic, and then we have them again this year. So a little more prepared for it this year because we had them a year ago. But basically, it's sort of Ryder Cup style. You'll have two teams playing together, paired together, and they'll play 4-ball in 2 of the rounds, which is where everybody plays their own ball, and you just take the best score for each team. And then they'll have 2 alternate shot rounds where the teammates obviously will alternate shots. The scoring won't be quite as high, quite as good in those rounds as it is when you're just taking the best score from both golfers. So a little bit of a unique format, and we've got 80 teams, and I believe it's top 30 in ties or 35 in ties, either 30 or 35 in ties make the cut. So it's a pretty limited number of teams making the cut too. So your thoughts just on the overall format and just the way this week goes in general?
Yeah, I believe it's the top 33 in ties. Not sure why they settled on that number, but
I knew it was 30. It was 30 something. Yeah. Split the difference.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, like you mentioned, rounds 1 and 3 are going to be best ball. Rounds 2 and 4 are going to be alternate shots. So you're going to see a lot of low scores on Thursday and Saturday. And then alternate shot, I mean, you can, play under par, but at the same time, you're relying on your teammate a lot more than you are the other 2 days. So you're going to see a lot of, high rounds in rounds 2 and 4. And then as far as, the event goes, it's just hard because we don't know, who really plays better in a team format. We don't know. Are you going to target golfers with similar skill sets or, complementary skill sets? Are you looking for team chemistry? I'm kind of off of that train after playing Brown and Kisner last year in every single lineup, and I think they finished dead last. So, yeah, I'm kind of struggling with the strategy. I think I'm just going to rely on, the course fit and the usual numbers and, kind of ignore the narratives. But do you have a different take?
No, I think that's fair. I'll target them in a few spots, but it does worry me if you've got, say, because you need to make so many birdies in the best ball rounds and the scoring is so low. It worries me if you got teams with like 2 bad putters paired together. Just because if you got to get to, 8, 9, 10, 11 under par in those rounds, it just worries me a little bit that maybe there won't be enough birdies with those groups if they're not making those 5 and 6 foot putts. So other than that, though, I mean, this is kind of an event where a lot of guys just treat it as kind of a glorified exhibition. You've got some guys that, take it a little more seriously. Ryan Palmer's got blackmail apparently on every member of the PGA Tour, so he always gets to play with the number 1 ranked guy. We'll talk about him in a little bit, but it's just a little bit unpredictable. So I think it is a week where, particularly in multi-entry tournament builds, you can maybe look to embrace that variance a little bit with some lower owned teams, because really this is an event that is a little harder to peg than most.
Yeah, I wish we had a list of teams that were, actively scouting the course and planning each hole and how they're going to attack it, and then the teams that are just out there to have some fun, because they're going to be a lot of those that are just like, yeah, we'll play. Might as well give it a shot, and if we find ourselves in contention, then we'll get serious about it. But it's going to be tough, like you mentioned. I do think it's a good week to fade the chalk if you can, and it's going to be hard to spot the chalk too, because it's trying to target teams instead of individual players. Yeah, Trey's got a tough job on his hands this week.
Yeah, just give everybody 15% ownership, give or take. It'll be about right. So, TPC Louisiana is the course. This was a normal stroke play event for like a decade, starting in around 2005, 2006, before they converted it to the teams format. And then, this course has been used for the 4 years that it's been held as a teams competition. The winning score generally between like 20 and 26, 27 under par, with, again, most of that scoring done in the best ball round. So what have you discovered as far as the course itself, and I guess just how relevant the course setup is for an event like this?
Yeah, so everything is pretty easy on average. The fairway is easy to hit, the green's easy to hit, scrambling success percentage here is pretty high. Three putt percentage here is very low. So I do think it's a fairly easy course, but it is a Pgi design. Typically, you can't overpower his courses off the tee. And even though driving distance is a little bit more important here than at his other courses, you see a lot of golfers club down off the tee, which is kind of why you see that driving accuracy percentage so high. Other than that, I mean, going to be a lot of wedges, a lot of approach shots from 75 to 125, and then a lot from 200 plus. So the mid irons that we saw a lot last week, probably going to be kept in the bag for most of the week. And then that's pretty much it. I mean, I don't mind playing the PGA narrative. It does seem like a lot of those specialists tend to play well at this event.
As for the DFS setup, it's a little bit different because obviously coding in the software is a little bit unique for a team event. So DraftKings has kept the individual players separate, but you can only roster one player per team, and the scoring for those players will be the same. So, for example, with Morikawa and Hovland, it doesn't matter who makes the birdie. If the team gets a birdie, they both get birdie points, and you can only roster one of them on any given team. So how we do our projections in Lineup HQ on Rotogrinders, if you're using it, is we simply just project one of the two golfers, and then that is the golfer you will get. No rhyme or reason for which one of the two we have in there, but we only have one of the two in there. If you're building lineups on your own, it frankly doesn't matter who you pick. You just can't pick both of them within the same lineup. FanDuel has combined the rosters into pairs as one golfer. So you can see that shows up a little bit different in our lineup HQ. But again, it's just a 1 week thing here because of the different formats. So hopefully we've got all the bugs worked out on that. But if not, feel free to send us a message, or if anything is confusing, let us know. If you want to chat with us during the show, you can hop on over to the free Rotogrinders Discord channel, rotogrinders.com/Discord. Anybody with a Rotogrinders account can get in there, and we are in the live stream chat channel. So find us there if you have any questions as we go through. Probably won't take us quite as long as normal to get through it this week, simply because there's a lot of kind of bad teams at the bottom, and we've only got 80. With the format where two guys are together. There's actually 160 golfers in the field, but only 80 teams to discuss. So let's start. As usual, we've got a few above 10K on DraftKings. That would be 4 teams. The Morikawa Hovland team, Cantlay Schauffele, Leishman and Cam Smith, and Sam Burns and Billy Horschel are your top 4 priced teams. Are you prioritizing any of that group?
I mean, I think you can make a strong case for pretty much any of them. I do think many will be off of Cam Smith and Leishman for 2 reasons. They're the defending champs, and people hate playing the defending champs. And then you have, Cam Smith, who kind of fell apart at the Masters a little bit and then missed the cut last week. He did battle back. So if you are looking for lower ownership, I do think that's kind of the team you want to take a stance on. I don't have a strong take on them. I like Cantlay and Xander. They're 2 guys that have complete all-around games. So if one of them puts them in a bad spot, the other one you can feel pretty confident in, kind of helping out there. Morikawa and Hovland, obviously the 2 most talented golfers in the field, I would say, but they have similar weaknesses. So if they are going to miss the greens, it's going to put extra pressure on that short game because you don't want to let your teammate down. So I'm going to have exposure to both those teams at the very top. I think they're clearly the best 2 teams, but if I'm deciding between them, I will go with Xander and Cantlay. And then Horschel and Burns, I just have it's kind of a sticker shock when it comes to Horschel's price tag. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what to do there, but they are a good team. I think they played together last year and finished 4th. So if you want to play the chemistry angle, you certainly can. Who are your favorites up there?
Yeah, it's Cantlay and Xander for me. I worry about the short game with Morikawa and Hovland. If there's, a big number there in the alternate shot rounds, or just, not enough birdies in the best ball rounds with them both kind of struggling occasionally on and around the green. So I think it's easily Cantlay Schauffele number 1 for me, and Smith Leishman number 2. And I'll probably be underweight on the other 2 of the 10K plus group, I think, this week. So again, they're all fine, but definitely Cantlay Schauffele first for me. I think, Cantlay just continues to be in the mix each and every week. Outside of a blip there at the Players, he's had, fourth at the Tournament of Champions, ninth at the Amex, second at the Waste Management, fourth at Pebble Beach, second last week. And just the fact that both he and Schauffele are steady. They're all around stats, just to me, are the best you'll find. So Cantlay and Schauffele for me, definitely, and Leishman Smith second.
Yep, I like it.
All right, let's move into the 9K range. I kind of joked earlier, Ryan Palmer. Palmer has played with Spieth here a couple times. When Spieth was at the top of his game, he's played with John Rahm here when Rahm was at the top of his game. And now he gets Scheffler when Scheffler's winning every tournament on the planet. So I'm not sure what kind of dirt Ryan Palmer has on everybody else on the PGA Tour. Now, to his credit, Palmer has a strong history here. And he definitely takes this tournament seriously. And he's playing with Scheffler, who just, suits up and wins these days. So we'll dig into the other 9K guys. But what do we make of Palmer and Scheffler here?
Yeah, Palmer needs to take this seriously because he's getting half his FedEx Cup points each year from this event, just having his teammates carrying him. So I don't know what to do with those two. I mean, Scheffler, if he wins 5 of 7, I'll just eat another loss and move along my way. I just can't. I don't know. I can't get him right. But he is cheaper than he has been the last couple of weeks. So if you want to play that angle, you certainly can. I think Poulter and Lowry are interesting. As I mentioned earlier, I think it's only a matter of time before Lowry gets that win. He's been in awesome form, and Poulter, very good short game, typically plays well in these team events. So he's one of the narratives that I don't mind playing this week. Same with Sergio and Tommy. I mean, they've played together a lot on the Ryder Cup. They played together here in 2019, finished second. Tommy's been playing a lot better recently. I think he gained a ton of strokes on and around the greens. He wasn't hitting any greens last week and still finished, T10. So they're interesting. My favorite's going to be Pereira and Neiman. Two guys that we think of as elite ball strikers, but Neiman's been very good around the green this year. Mito's better than you might think around the green, and both are average putters. So I think that's a team to watch out for. Doesn't look like that ownership's going to be too outrageous. We have them at about 21% right now. So I like them the most. What about you?
Yeah, I think this group is really interesting because you start to get, you mentioned the sticker shock earlier on Horschel. You're going to start to see that with a few of these guys. I've kind of been with you on being underweight on Scheffler. I just don't know here. I think I got to be in a little bit with the way how seriously Palmer takes this and just how well Scheffler's been playing when they're only like the fifth most expensive team. So I will have some Palmer, Scheffler, and I think your call on Lowry is pretty good as well. Fine with him and Poulter, even though, again, Poulter, you're just not used to him being 9,500 these days. So all these teams are really interesting. Like, if you want to compare form for the year as a whole, like, you're probably not going to find a lot of pairings with better 2022 numbers in the 9Ks than Gooch and Homa. So I think they're in play as well. And I think you're going to see basically all these teams kind of come out to ownership spreading out into that 10, 12, 14% range, which is what we see in our lineup HQ numbers right now. With a lot of these 8 and 9K pairings, we kind of see the ownership dispersing out into the kind of mid-teens, which I kind of agree with. I think it is kind of going to be all over the place. But other thoughts for you on these guys?
Yeah, don't mind the Max and Gooch call. They do seem to set up well here. And they did play together here last year, T17. I know you're more of an MME, type of DFS guy, but if you were doing one lineup, do you like starting in the 10s? Are you prioritizing that range, or can you start with 2 of the 9Ks?
I think that's a really tough question, but if I was just doing one lineup, I'd have a tough time not starting it with Cantlay and Schauffele, I think.
Yeah, same.
And then maybe you can still get one of these 9K groups, depending on how you feel about the value. Like, if you play Cantlay, Schauffele, and then say Fleetwood and Garcia, 75-50 for your last 4 is doable. Maybe you end up in the 8Ks a little bit more, but It is a little bit of a tough build here, just because there's not a lot of obvious value, and some of the teams like in the 6Ks are pretty weak. So let's go ahead and move down into the 8Ks. You've got teams like Riley and Zalatoris, Hallett. Literally combined Hatton and Willett. Hallett. Benny On looking to get his tour card back with Sung J M. Benny On's been grinding on the Corn Ferry Tour. I think he's like top 3 in points on the Corn Ferry Tour. So, he's motivated to try to get that tour card back. So, the short game, as always, is the issue with Benny On. But I think playing with Sung J, having motivation to get his tour card back, playing really well on the Corn Ferry Tour. I think Benny On and Sung J M are pretty solid value at 8,700 this week. So your thoughts on some of the higher 8Ks?
Yeah, I said at the top of the show, I wanted to rely more on the ratings and projections, and going through it now, I want to chase all these narratives. I mean, I would love to see Benny On back on the PGA Tour. Has a recent win on the Corn Ferry Tour, second last week, I believe. So yeah, I mean, I'm rooting for that team for sure. It's hard not to. So yeah, I'll probably have some exposure to them. Willett and Hatton's interesting. Both have been playing pretty well. Hatton is kind of the all-around guy, and then Willett's that short game specialist. So they kind of have complementary skill sets. Another duo that probably knows each other well from the Corn Ferry Tour, Riley and Zalatoris. I think that makes a lot of sense as well at 8,900. Doesn't look like they're going to be too popular. It's an interesting range for sure, because you have Still and Keegan, who I do think will be popular. They're going to pop in all the models because they're ball striking, and then they also finished 4th here last year. So I think they make sense, but if they're going to be chalky, I don't mind just looking elsewhere. But lower owned guys, 8,200. I like Kirk and Todd. Kirk again missed the cut on the number last week, missed a 5-footer. Not going to hold that against him. Todd, what he does the best, he hits fairways and he makes putts. And I think for a team event, that is a really good qualities to have. And Kirk's a very good iron player. So I think they're interesting. They finished T27 here last year.
Yeah, I think that's a group that could, it wouldn't surprise me if they missed the cut. It wouldn't surprise me if they finished top 5. So I think it's definitely a strong upside group there that fairly easy to overlook, to be honest, just because you don't, Todd almost never carries a ton of ownership. I know Kirk's been popular lately, but with that miscut last week, like you mentioned on the number, might have people kind of looking the other way a little bit. So like that group, I'm on Bradley and Steele, like you said, ownership pending, but they're good friends. 4th here last year. Keegan's been playing pretty well of late, and Steele, I believe, has made 3 or 4 cuts in a row after kind of struggling to start the year. So I like that group. Those 2 pairings are my favorite in the lower 8K range, and then Benny On and Sung J M, as I mentioned, in the upper part. Anything else in the 8Ks for you?
I don't know. I mean, McIntyre and Laird, that's kind of a fun team. Yeah, that's about it. Hadwin and Svensson, 2 guys that I've been playing a lot this year. Hadwin's been on fire. Svensson, very hit or miss, but he does pop a lot. What about the veterans in Rose and Stenson?
Yeah, I think I'm out on that. As Stenson made the cut last week, but I think he finished basically dead last. They've played together. He finished 54th. He made a little bit of a run on Sunday, but only made 11 birdies. Those guys have played together a lot in this tournament. There was a time where they were basically the 2 of the higher salary guys in this tournament. So I think I'd take a shot on Bobby Mack and Laird, or even Hadwin and Svensson above Rose and Stenson at this point. And I think they're interesting for tournaments. Speaking of which, we get into the 7Ks, Mitchell and Snedeker, which was one of the weirdest pairings. They played together last year, didn't they? Didn't they do well?
Yeah, we were very confused at how they
became how they partnered with each other. What'd they do here last year? I don't have that.
They were in contention and finished T4.
Yeah, so they're getting the band back together for this week, but the group kind of thins out once you get into the 7Ks. You're undoubtedly probably going to have maybe at least one golfer that's struggling. So it's just difficult to make it seem like it's a no-brainer at those salaries. Is there a group that you think is a an obvious play in the 7Ks?
Well, Gregorius the Wise in chat. Obviously, he's thinking
Doug Gim's in the field.
Gim and Schwab are going to win. I think they're a fine team. They rate out pretty well for me. At that same price, Bramlett and McNeely. McNeely just continues to grind out top 30 finishes. Bramlett's a good ball striker, so I think that's interesting. They've played and made the cut here last year. I don't feel great about any of them. My favorites are going to be Norlander and Noren, a couple of Swedish guys. Noren's got that really good short game. Norlander can be very, hit or miss with the short game, but he's a good ball striker. So I kind of like that complementary skill set. And they played together here last year at T21. And that's pretty much it for me. I don't feel great about anybody.
Yeah, it's just tough to find the obvious values. You just got question marks with anybody. Like if you wanted to go with the narrative we all used last year, then Brown and Kisner are a steal, but neither one in great form right now. Knox and Stewart, if you want two guys that are going to hit a bunch of fairways, but maybe a safer bet to make the cut. But I like Bramlett and McNeely for the upside. You mentioned them in passing. McNeely, rock solid season. Bramlett's been a little more hit or miss, but Bramlett did close last week on Sunday with one of the best rounds of the day. Shot a 64 to pop up about 20 spots on the leaderboard. So I like the Bramlett McNeely team. Of course, I'll have a little bit of Gim and Schwab as always, and then probably not a ton till we get down to the lower end of the range. I do think that Buckley and Smalley are an interesting kind of risk reward pairing, and they are full on min salary on FanDuel. So if you're playing over there, they are 7K with a 7K floor. On DraftKings, they're 7K with a 6K floor. So not quite as appealing as a punt, but I do think that they've got an interesting ceiling. Surely they know each other from playing on the Korn Ferry Tour. Surely they're both motivated in their first full season with a tour card. So I think that if you want to play that motivation angle, Buckley and Smalley are interesting. Anything else in the 7Ks for you?
Yeah, we always gravitate towards Smalley, so I'll have some exposure there. The only other team that could make some noise, Tigala and Hostler. So, they're the most hit or miss, individuals out there. They'll either finish dead last or top 10. So, if they can combine their rounds, on the right days, their shots at the right times, maybe they have some upside. But that's about it for the 7Ks. And the 6Ks, I have no idea.
Yeah. There's not much here, folks. I mentioned it'd probably be a little bit of a shorter show here this week, but I played some Warinsky as a punt last week. Did not go well. Horrible form there. Like Patrick Rogers hasn't done much. Bo Hogue was a thing once upon a time. Leviota was a thing once upon a time, but none of these guys are playing well right now. And if you're playing any of the 6K groups, it's basically just a shot in the dark. There's nothing in terms of current numbers that are going to make you super interested in any of these guys. Is there anybody that even looks remotely decent in the model?
In terms of teams that project better than their salary ranks, you have Lebiota and Seifert, Lee Hodges and Whaley, Bram and Hubbard, and then the old man group in Taylor and Jim Herman. That's pretty much it.
It's ugly.
Yeah.
There's just not much. Scotty G's playing with DA points this week at 6K bare minimum. So if you want to, Bill Haas is playing with Jay. It's ugly. Robert Garrigus is getting ready to. My boy Garrigus is going to go to the Saudi tour, like one of the first guys to ask for permission. That the Saudi tour is totally going to take off with Robert Garrigus on it. So the sky is the limit now. Invest while you can. Other than that, I don't have anything else. I think in like a single entry build or a cash game, you're probably not going below 7K, low to mid 7Ks. There's just nobody in the 6Ks here. Anything else that's noteworthy for you?
Nice week to just kind of, lay back, play a little bit less than you usually do. Maybe you get a sweat on Sunday, but this isn't an event that you want to be, over invested in for sure.
Yeah. And, if you're building multiple GPP lineups, don't be afraid to take some shots, even on some lower owned groups, because this is an event that, some will take it more seriously than others, and often tends to be a little bit unpredictable with the best ball format for a couple of rounds. It's just simply going to come down to which teams make the most putts, and just is a little unpredictable. So have some fun with it. Don't go crazy. And we'll get back to the regular normal stroke play events starting next week. So a little bit shorter show for you tonight, but that's okay. We'll give you a little time back and get ready to start building our lineups as well. So Noto, anything else to add before we get out of here?
I'll be around for questions if you ever have any, but yeah, have fun this week. It should be at least interesting. It's a nice break from the stroke play, but I'm glad it's once a year.
Yeah, we don't want this every week. It's just a little different and hard to code the numbers and get the tools all working and stuff too. So from a content perspective, we're definitely glad this isn't an every week occurrence. So, all right, with that, we'll go ahead and get out of here and call it a show for you here tonight. For Noto and our producer, Steve, thanks for joining us. I am Justin. Have a great week, everybody, and we will catch you later.